today's episode, we have me, Nelly, and we have.
Oh, Cynthia. Just want to shout out to Theo and Spani for a great job they're doing. This is great.
It is
We're so
amazing.
grateful and excited, kind of nervous,
Yeah.
but we are grateful to be here today and to just talk
Have
our
this
feelings out.
opportunity, yes.
Yes.
And we also have.
Daniela.
Yeah. So, like she was saying, we want to shout out Theo and Spani for this podcast and this platform because I think it's definitely necessary for kids our age, or not kids, we're grown women now, but for, the youth and just members of our communities to discuss some controversial issues like we will be doing today.
Yes.
So, yeah, stay tuned and see what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
Before that, do you wanna starting with Daniela, do you wanna talk about what you do, what you studied in college?
Yes, I would love to. So, my name is Daniela. I'm Spani's sister, and I just graduated with a bachelor in sociology and philosophy, and I will be attending DU during the fall for.
I know that's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you. For clinical social work, and I did research during my undergrad, examining the beliefs and emotions of men who purchase sex.
Yikes. So my name is Nelly. I've been a long time friend and almost family of the podcaster Theo. So I'm currently a student at CU Denver. I'm a double major in biology and psychology, and I'm seeking a graduate degree in pharmaceuticals for mental illnesses. So I'm still in school, but I'm also a behavioral therapist right now. So we're going to be discussing a little bit about what I do. And yeah, that's it about me.
Yeah, and my name is Cynthia, and I'm also Theo's little sister. I also studied, I got my major in psychology and intercultural ministries, and I'm also doing families and couples counseling and therapy right now. That's what I'm. That's the program I'm in right now, and I'm a future therapist for families and couples. So yeah,
That's kind of
and I also
exciting.
teach. I teach preschool.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing right now. So yeah,
Wow, she's a busy woman.
We have very intelligent women on this podcast today, so
Yes.
you guys, you have very smart women speaking to you today. So we did say that we're going to be discussing controversial topics today. So which one of our controversial topics did you guys want to start with today?
Danielle can start.
Yes. So I'm going to be giving a little background on my research. I'm looking on my phone because I want to make sure I'm doing it right for each and every one of you.
Take your time,
So,
sister.
First, my research question was, are men experiencing loneliness and isolation more likely to purchase sex? And are men who believe in patriarchal notions of masculinity and entitlement more likely to purchase sex? So the objective of my research was focusing on men because there is a lot of research out there on sex buying, sex trafficking, and all of that. But most of the research focused on the women, like the provider, instead of the consumer. And as we know, like it's a trade, there's a demand and then people have to supply. So I wanted to look on the demand side because a lot of people weren't looking at it. So that's why we focused on the men. And so yeah, because men keep that industry going. And so how I gathered all this research, I was part of a research team with my professor, Dr. Leek. Shout out to Dr. Leek. And he also was my mentor. So we did this as like a team. And so we did survey interview of 1,776 men in the United States. So that's a big group of people that we were looking at. And we bought our research on the participants for Qualtrics, which is just like a place where you can get surveys are supplied and all of that. You can look it up on Google. And so the dependent variable, what we were measuring was sex buying and rates and practices. And the independent variable, what's changing, we were looking at loneliness, isolation, and masculinity and gender norms. And then we controlled for age, military status, marital status, and income. And we use the UCLA loneliness and isolation scale to measure loneliness and isolation. And then we use the gender norm scale to measure gender norms. And both of those scales are like proven in the discipline of sociology. And they're proven to like, measure what they're meant to measure. And so I'm going to tell you the results. If you're not bored yet, keep listening.
Well, so I was gonna say, like, before we jump into the results,
Yes.
I think you like touched a little bit on the why.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna ask you, so what really like motivated you to like want to know like this question, because it's such like a bizarre question, why do men pay for sex, like why? But I want to know like what motivated you to ask that question.
Okay, so I was part of McNair in IUNC, and for my research, I was debating what type of questions I wanted to ask, what type of questions I wanted to dig into. And like I mentioned, my mentor, I went to him and we were just brainstorming ideas, and this was actually one of his research. Like, he's very profound in that area of masculinity and all of that. So he told me like he had 4 research questions that he was working on, and this was one of them. And it just sounded really interesting. Like, why do men purchase sex? What is making men out there like if you look at the question, like, is it loneliness and isolation? I felt like intrigued to know, like, are you lonely? Like, is that what's happening here? Are y'all lonely out there? So you feel like you need to go buy intimacy?
Right.
Yeah. So, and then the second one, like, is it masculinity and gender norms? And I was like, is it because like of like, do you feel like you have to show like perform your manhood, like you have to prove that I'm a man, therefore I need to prove that I have lots of sex to prove that I'm a man.
Yeah.
So like, just thinking about those, it really intrigued me, and I asked him to be part of his research team because I just wanted to know like what's making men purchase sex.
Yeah, pay for sex.
Yeah, and also it's just like in that environment of sex buying, it's a lot. Like, all the things that come with sex buying, because this research looks at like legal and illegal sex, like prostitution, and then it also looks at sex trafficking. So, all of that. Yeah.
Well answered. That was perfect. So I don't have anything to add if you want to get into your results. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'll tell you the results. You might be shocked, but you might not.
I might be.
Okay. So the results, so like we said, in the survey, the minimum age of the participants that answered the survey was 15 and the maximum 94. And then we also looked at military, like whether being in the military affects whether you buy sex or not. It does. And we look at marital status, whether being married or not affects if you buy sex. It does. And then we looked at education, whether like the more educated you are, the less you buy sex, and the less educated you are, and the more you purchase sex. But that question is a bit tricky, and because like to measure those who are like privileged, who are rich, they buy sex in a different ways and different revenues than those who have less money. Yeah. So it's hard to be like a concrete answer to be like, oh, when you have more money, you buy like sex, because they buy it in different venues that are seen as like not a problem.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then we looked at entitlement, like does entitlement affect sex buying? It does. And then we looked at gender norms and loneliness. So what we mean by gender norms is just mean how do you act as a man? Like, what are the rules of being a man? And does that affect whether you purchase sex or not? So,
okay. And so is that like the stereotypical like roles that they're expected to fill in as like, house providers and fathers and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then, so let me go here. So the variable that determines whether you purchase sex or not is actually age. The age that you are is a major factor on whether or not you purchase sex. And we found that like the younger you are, the more likely you are to purchase sex, and the older you are, the less likely you are to purchase sex. And this is because the younger you are, you're not married, you like, you still have stigma to do those things. And when you get old, things start to fall apart, you get married, you have kids, all of that stuff. So that's why it's like marriage, and they get more responsibilities, so they don't have time to like go out there and purchase sex in that way. But when you're young, you have, you don't have anybody holding you accountable, so you can do whatever you please.
That's really shocking to me, because I always thought like people who purchase sex are like older middle-aged men, because like you have to purchase it because you don't just like get it when you go out in social groups, or just like, because I feel like it's harder for them to just like go and meet like a beautiful woman like at a party or something and be like, hey, you want to go home or something. So I would assume that it would be harder for older people to have access to free sex because they're old and they're droopy and they're,
Yeah.
So that's really shocking to me.
Yeah, you have to think of the, everything that goes down there too. The older you get, you don't feel like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's weird. I mean, it's good. It's interesting because like in movies, especially like, like in African movies, you can see a lot of like sugar daddies.
Oh, yeah.
Even here too, in America, or in the Western world, you see a lot of like older men and with sugar daddies.
Yeah.
Having younger women, so like they're paying a lot of money, and they're rich, they're not poor.
Yeah.
So it's just like, that's interesting that the older ones are the ones who don't buy sex more than the younger ones.
Yeah.
I understand that the younger ones are, they don't have money, they're trying to survive.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness. Okay, wow, that's great to hear. That's interesting. So it's good to do your studies.
Yes, because keep in mind, like, what you see may be like, oh, it's common sense. When we look at research, it shows that it's actually not common sense. Like you would think like, oh, like you said, the older you are, that's because the media portrays it that way. But like when you do the research, you realize like younger men in their 30s and their 40s and are the like in their 20s too are the ones that going out there purchasing sex.
That's insane to me. Wow.
Yeah. And then, okay, so this research is truly shocking because the first question, are men experiencing loneliness and isolation more likely to purchase sex? The answer is actually no. Men who experience loneliness and isolation are not more likely to purchase sex. Those emotions are not correlated with more sex buying. And that might be because like when you feel lonely, you don't want to like do anything. You feel isolated. You feel like you don't have the energy to go out there and like engage in those things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like loneliness is more of like an emotional demand, like to have connection, not like a physical demand. So I think it's weird that they would connect like loneliness with sex.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been lonely and been like, I would like to be in an intimate relationship. I would just like a hug, maybe.
Yeah, going off of that, I have heard and read somewhere that like partially that loneliness is one factor that leads people to, because of boredom too, that they end up watching porn because they're bored and they kill time, who knows. But I heard that is also somehow a truth, but I don't think it's like the whole truth.
Yeah, and we also have to keep in mind this is a study of men in America, so it might be different if you look at men in like Europe or something. Loneliness might be a factor, but this research just shows that loneliness for American men at least is not the factor of why they're purchasing sex.
Yeah.
So, which leads me to the next one. It's actually entitlement that pushes men to purchase sex because they feel entitled to women's bodies. They feel entitled to, like, it's your job. If I want sex, I want you to give me sex. They feel entitled to our women's body, our bodies. So they're like, I want it, so I'm going to buy it.
So interesting that you say entitlement. And could that have anything to do with how these men are raised and what they're, conditioned to believe that they are, and, what they deserve or what they should get from a woman? So does that play a factor into that entitlement, maybe?
Yes, definitely. Because, in mainstream media, how are women portrayed? We're portrayed as like a product. We're just bimbos that have nothing to offer except for our youth and sexual stigma to men.
Yeah.
And they are portrayed as like macho men who are like, if they want your body, they need to have it. It's not even a choice for you whether you allow them your body or not. Like, you've seen men and it's like, I want her, and they're going to do everything to get that women. Even if the woman herself is like, I don't want you. Even if they reject the man's like, no. They don't hear no. They're like, I want you, so I'm going to get you.
And so I think that leads to, if I don't get you for free, then I'm going to pay for you. I'm still going to get you in some way or another.
Yes.
I'm just
crazy.
curious. I'm just curious about, the research you did, like the article, literature of it. Just like, I'm just like wondering, like, the research you did. So with like the year or how old the research is, I'm just like curious about, like, how old were the research? Like, were there, like, is it like recently research? Is it like from 2008 2010 research, or 2021? I'm just curious about, like, how old,
up to date
your
results are.
I'm just curious on, the type of articles you viewed. And
Yeah, so we did we looked at articles from different time periods. Some of the articles were like in the 90s, some were in some were in the 2000s, and some were like 2020 articles. So we looked at different articles, and also we keep in mind in research, sometimes things become common sense. It's like, oh, of course, when you're lonely and isolated, you want to purchase sex. It becomes common sense, and people believe that. And our research, it might break that myth, that's a myth, and this is a research that's a new research that bring in new information for people. So we have to keep that in mind too.
cool. Oh, another question is just like the race, part of it. You said the U.S., and I'm just like curious about, white, black, African Americans, Hispanic, Asians. I'm just like curious about those type of groups. Like, was your research more of like, just, a lot of people
demographics, girl.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Okay, so fun fact, really, really sad fact. I didn't look at those because, as I say, I was working as part of a research group, and this was, so in my research, there are actually 3 different papers that got written, and this is my portion of the paper, and then my mentor had his portion of the paper, and then a third person that we were working with had their portion of the paper. So if I email my mentor, he will have those like statistics, but I didn't look at that because he didn't think it was important for me, my research especially, to look at that. But I have the data and everything, so I could just go in, like, if I had the time, and looked at like the race and stuff. But for my research, that wasn't the question that I was focused on, even though it's an important question. I just wanted to know men in general.
Why they pay for sex.
Yeah.
And so you found that all men, or not all men, but maybe like the men that you like studied,
Yes.
they were all influenced by or they're what caused them to look for sex was because they were entitled to women's bodies.
Yeah, they were entitled, and they fit into that like macho, masculine, like stereotypical what you think of a man, and they fit into that.
And so, you know what? I feel like this ties so much into like what we're going to discuss today as well, because you mentioned that it's because of like their expectations and what they're brought up to believe that they deserve, which I feel like a lot of these African men are, you know, raised in these homes believing that, you know, listen, you're going to eventually be old enough to have a beautiful wife who has never interacted sexually with any other person, despite what you've been doing, busy man. And when you marry this woman for the price that her father or guardian decides, she's going to be available at your beckon and your calling to provide sexual intimacy, food, raise your children, clean your house, and, you know, just all these ridiculous things that he could also do.
Yes.
So I feel like, you know, we should discuss a little bit about how we think that, you know, this plays into our African men and the African community. Like, so what do you think? How do you think, what is the prominence of this behavior in African men?
It is so prominent. It's so crazy. Like, the way the men and the women are raised are so different. It's ridiculous. Like, the men are like out there, they're free. They can go out and stay out for whatever time. And then the women, it's like 8 o'clock, you have to be home, because what are you doing
got 8
out there?
o'clock, dude?
They're like, what are you doing out there? Who are you with? Like, as you're growing up, you're like trained, like literally trained. You're okay. You need to know how to cook. You need to know how to take care of the children. You need to know how to like wash clothes. You need to know how to clean the house. You need to know, like, you know, basically be a servant. Like, when they eat, after they're done, they can just throw their plates everywhere. And you need to come and pick it up, take it to the sink and wash it while they sit back and watch TV. And I'm like, you know, the sink is right there. You can just walk over there and put it there. And you know what? There, you can also grab the soap and just, like, you know, do that, you know? But they're raised so different. They're raised to be like free, while the women are so like constrained and restrained and everything. Like, and the way you dress, and just like they want you to be beautiful for men. Like, I'm like, can I be beautiful for myself? It's like, no. You have to be beautiful for men.
I just discovered while you spoke about this, we're all like psych majors of some sort.
Yeah.
I just realized that African parents are genius psychologists. Because let me tell you, you guys know that study where, you know, dogs are conditioned to, you know, when the bell rings, you know, the dog comes and the dog knows it's time for food. And, you know, eventually the bell rings and the dog starts, you know, salivating.
Drooling. Yes.
Minus the food.
Yes.
As well as the positive and negative reinforcement, you know, you do this and you know that you're going to be praised, which in African household, I don't think there's true. Like a positive reinforcement. It's just like there's no reinforcement at all. That's how you know you're doing great. And then if you're doing horribly, there's like negative reinforcement at its best, right? You come home at 8, listen, I hope you made a bed outside because that's where you sleeping. And you know, you refuse to clean your room. Guess what? You're not going to find a husband. I hope you know that. They drill that into your head, right? And you know the crazy part about me? Just a quick anecdote.
Go ahead, Nelly. Go ahead.
Listen, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, but I grew up with 2 brothers, 1 sister, right? Every time my older brother used to go out and party with Theo, I don't know, yeah, I said it.
Shade. He's been exposed.
Listen, he used to go out and, you know, who's going to tell him what time to come home? He's a man, right? Yes. And, you know, he goes and comes home whatever time he wants. And my other brother, he was more of like an indoor person. He didn't really like to go to parties. But if he chose to, I'm pretty sure there would not be any limitations or any, like, you know, don't come home at this time. Like, he's a man, right?
Yes.
And I used to be coming home from school programs. Y'all heard that. After school programs or maybe even some volunteer works. And if I got home, you said 8 o'clock, I was kind of shocked. I was like, I wish I had your parents. If I came home at 8 o'clock, I knew that I was going to get it. And the first thing my parents or my mother used to say is, you're a woman. You are a girl.
Yes.
You're not a man. You know, just be like, you are a girl, you're a woman. I'm like, I think I remember that this morning when I, went to potty. I remember that I was a woman. I didn't forget that. And so for me, it's like, especially growing up, I came here when I was about 6 years old. So for my mother to always like bring up the fact that I was a woman and I should behave this way, it contradicted the way that what I learned when I went to school. Because when I went to school, it's like, equality, men and women are, treated equally. So whenever I came home and listened to these, chastisements about how because I'm a woman, I should not come home a certain time, I should not behave a certain way, it just played with there was this like moment of like cognitive dissonance. Maybe you can speak more on that, where one belief is contradicting your behaviors, and it's like, it made me question, who am I? Am I living according to who I'm supposed to be as a woman? Am I living according to what I'm supposed to be as an African woman? So it's like, that was a very strong topic that you brought up. So I know Cynthia has a little bit to add on to that.
Yeah, with like the gender roles and just how like our parents like raise us, it's my best friend and we usually like talk about how like the way we women were raised in our African homes should be for our own benefits. It shouldn't be for just for marriage. We with cooking, cleaning, just like taking care of yourself. Skills. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think the best should have been or should be that it's for our own good, and they should also do the same thing for men. Like you guys mentioned how like we're the ones who are supposed to take care of the home, and the guys are out there playing soccer, going party. So we were just like talking about how like it's very important that cooking, all these things, it's for your own good, and the men should also do the same thing for 100%. Their own good. There's some men who were grew up on their own, and they had to figure those things out, and there are also some parents we can give credit to those African parents who are able to teach their kids both genders, female and male, that you're both equal in this house, and both of you guys are going to do same jobs. You are going to wash dishes too. John, you're washing the dishes. Alicia, you're also washing the dishes next week. So I think that's for their own good, not for
a wife or a husband.
Exactly.
Yes. Just to add to that, like growing up in an African, it's so burdensome. Like all the expectation that's put on you, what you have to do, and then you see like, I remember this story because Spani was there. I'm a throw shade at Spani for a second, because I remember I will come home from school and stuff, and the dishes will be there and stuff like that. And then I was expected to do the dishes. Well, both my brothers were literally there watching the TV. Like every day I have to do it. And then I remember this one time, Spani coming here. He literally took like I was done. I was like, I'm not watching these. I am not washing these dishes. I am not doing any of this. He took the dishes. He took my remote, my TV remote. He put like a lock on it so that I wouldn't be able to watch TV. And then he put a lock on it so I'm not able to watch TV. Like I figured out the pin, but like that's a different story. But like he put a lock on it so I wouldn't watch the TV. And then my mom, like our mom, took the dishes and like almost threw it away. Girl. Like there was so much things. I was like, I don't want to, like, what? Why am I the only one that have to wash the dishes? Why am I the only one that have to clean the house? Why am I the only one that have to do all these things when I have two older brothers too that can do these things? Like they get to go out there and do whatever they want, but I have to be like constrained and just be at home like washing after themselves. Like I'm like, you can just rinse the dishes, like just rinse it and put it back, but they don't do that, and they expect you to like do that. So that was, he knows what I'm talking about.
Whole time.
He knows
Daniela,
what I'm talking about.
I totally agree with you. Especially growing up with brothers. Oh my goodness. It's just so hard. So growing up, not knowing like, okay, you have to do this. You not wanting to do it for me, for example, I used to cry cleaning.
too.
Yes, I used to cry
Yes.
cleaning because I was like the only girl in the house. All my older sisters were married.
Yes.
My 3 brothers, 4. I was the only one doing, so like I can relate with you.
Yeah,
that,
I was like, in an African household, you like, it doesn't even matter what you want. I'm like, I don't want to clean. I don't want to do this. They're like, you have to, like, you have no
As
choice.
long as you're under my roof.
I mean, because you're a woman too.
Yeah. Like, you have no choice. You have to do it. They're like, you have to wash these dishes. And I'm like, why? Spani can wash the dishes too, Eric can wash the dishes too, Like, all these people can wash the dishes, but why does it fall on me to do all of these things?
You guys want to know something? And so,
Oh,
so let me tell you. So, and it looks like most of like our age groups, right? So college graduates and current college students. So we're able to observe these treatments and point out that they're unfair, right? And be like, why do I have to do this? And my brother doesn't have to do the same thing. And I do have to say, I'm a last born, so I did get a little bit of like wiggle room because I'm like, oh, she's a baby. But besides the point. So what I'm saying is, like, when I would go to my sister to vent to her about this kind of treatment from my mom, I'm like, dude, like, she doesn't even understand, like, sometimes I need to come home late because I have to do stuff, like, sometimes I'm like, I have to go do have a job, and even sometimes just for like social interactions with my friends, she doesn't understand that we can't predict what time the car is gonna take us to the location, and then whatever. She doesn't understand. So I'm venting to my sister, right? This is my best friend. So, and, I'm expecting her to come in and be like, well, I understand, Nelly, like, it's crazy, it's horrible, right? Different generations, guys.
Yeah.
So for them, especially the ones who already have the kids of their own, they've already begun practicing the way that our parents raised them with their own kids unconsciously, because she'll look at me and be like, well, why are you coming home that late? Like, what's why can't you go during the day? And why can't you just do the dishes? Or why can't you just do I'm like, dude, what? You were in that house, you understand, right? I'm not crazy, I promise. Like, I can do these things, but sometimes, like, time management matters, like, and we have all different perspectives about why we feel like we should be treated different. But because they've passed that and they've already started practicing the way they were raised with their own kids, they don't understand anymore. Now they're the new generation of parenting, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you guys have to say about that? Like, do you think that's like generational cycles? Do you think that's going to be us eventually?
I plan
Where
to
does it
change
start?
Yeah, I definitely plan to change a lot of stuff, but not going too much of the topic and stuff. I think if we, the younger generation don't change certain patterns, negative patterns about, like how our parents raised us and stuff, if we don't change that, it's going to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very important for us to change, meaning to, see that this is the problem and, try to do something about it. Not repeat it. So we have, all of these things that, influenced us, growing up, it's unconscious. So like we have to be conscious about, oh, okay, so this is why I did this and that, or this is why our parents did that.
100%.
So we just have to be aware of it, realize it, and also try to change it.
Yeah.
Not repeat it. If you find yourself doing it, just have some quiet time and be like,
wait.
Also, if you hurt somebody, a child or somebody, go and apologize. There's nothing wrong with apologizing.
Yes.
In our African homes, our parents barely come to us and say, oh, I'm sorry, I did this and that.
What is that?
Never.
Like, so it's crucial for us to just like realize and be aware of it.
Yeah, and just to add on to what you just brought up, a beautiful point. We don't consciously realize that we are being what our parents were being to us. And then on top of that, it's like they don't consciously realize that they're doing something wrong, because to them it's like, this is what you should be like. This is the right path. I'm guiding you towards success and health and wealth, you know, like, why aren't you listening to me, right? And so you know, you have these two separate perspectives that are clashing against one another, because like they don't realize, they do not realize that what they're doing is toxic and hurtful. Like there's been moments where my mom would say something like, you know, when they're angry, African parents they have no chill.
They don't.
They do not have no chill.
I'm like, I'm your child. Chill. Like,
no. You know, there's been moments where, you know, some words hurt, you know, they last long, and we understand that, especially in our studies. So you know, the way that you speak to your child matters. And so, you know, there's been moments where, you know, my mother is, you know, I know she loves me, we all know they love us, right? And in order for them to get the point across, they have to like put you down in one way, like, you know, it's like, oh, you want to grow up to be so and so, and you know, just
You'll
like,
never amount to anything.
I'm like, bro, I'm in college. Where did you go?
oh God.
No,
that's
like,
a
I love her.
different topic.
You know, it's like, that's what you're thinking in that moment. You know what I mean? In that moment of anger, it's like, that's not fair. Like, you haven't. What do you mean? I'm gonna be whatever I'm studying for, hopefully. And so when they, you know, speak to us like that, it's like, for us as the people receiving that, we cannot understand, like, well, how can you speak like that to me, right? We have to also realize that they don't realize, you know, the level of toxicness that they are projecting onto us. For them, that is parenting, that is discipline, and that is what you need to do. And so I feel like it's necessary for us kids to communicate to them sometimes, you know, not when they're angry, don't do that. But when the storm calms, it's important for us to, like, regardless of how awkward or how unusual, you know, that situation might be for African kids and an African parent, I think it's important for you to communicate what you believe, you know, hurt you, and what you believe should be, you know, how they handle the next situation. For instance, you know, my mom and I, we didn't used to, like, you know, talk about, you know, hey, like, you hurt me, what you said hurt my feelings, you shouldn't do that. But recently I found that after we have our arguments, and I'm like, can you say that, like, in a more kinder manner next time? Because I feel like you could have just asked me to do that without making me feel like, you know, lesser of a person. And I feel like to them, you are bringing to consciousness a little bit of something that they never could have thought you would voice to them.
You made a beautiful point. It's just like, I was just thinking, and in an African household, at least mine, it's like, when my mom asks me to do something, she's not asking for my opinion. Like, she's not asking, she's telling you, like, do this. And it's like, well, I don't feel like, you know, I have feelings, and sometimes I don't feel like doing things, or I don't want to do them right this moment. Like, I don't want to drop what I'm doing because I think it's important. And like, after I finish, yes, I will do the thing that you want me to do. But they don't get that sometimes. They're like, you're like a robot. It's like, do this, and it's like you drop everything. You have to do it, like, during their time, like, at the time that they want you to do. And I just don't like that. And also, you were talking earlier, a point that you brought up is that they're thinking like doing this is like the best for us, and it's the healthiest way. And I remember growing up, I had like anger tantrums. Like, I was like very,
which is
like,
normal.
Yes, she says I'm too hard. She used to say that all the time as I was growing up. She's like, relax, you're not a man, you're so hard, you need to be softer. Like, she'll make comments like that when I'm like, and then she's like, no, you're a woman, don't act like a man, you need to be softer, or you need to be like less, like, don't show your anger, like don't show anger, don't show negative emotions like that. So I have to be like,
and then in the future, when your man is smacking you around, he's a man. He's angry because he's a man.
Like, that's a different topic, because I can say so much about that, but I feel like that's a different topic. And she thinks like, oh, she has this clear idea of like, this is what a woman is is and this is what a man is,
Yeah.
and you should not cross those boundaries.
gender
And
roles.
yes, and as I was growing up, like, I'm gentle now, but like I have moments of extreme uncontrollable anger, but like thanks to Jesus, that's been, calm down.
Yeah.
But like as I was growing up, I was just intense as a child. Like I grew up with brothers, like I'm just hyped up, And she would be like, "No, you're women. Don't do that. Don't act like that. Don't be like that. Don't talk like that. Talk softer. Be like this. Be like that." And that would always like, I don't know, that like rubbed on me. Like as I'm older, like, and going in sociology and doing research and learning all these things, I look back on the things of my childhood, the words that my mother used to say and the things that she would like let me do or not do, and I'm like, whoa, this is really affecting me right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I point out, it's usually the mothers that are saying these things, right? I mean, the brothers, they come in when like, oh, I'll smack you if you don't do it, right?
Yeah.
Or the fathers. But do you realize that your mother was also someone's daughter
Yeah.
who was also being told the
Yeah.
same things that she's telling you?
Yeah.
And so until maybe our kids have kids,
Yeah.
that's when the toxicness that our parents have grown up believing that is the correct way of raising their children, that they have raised their children, and we have grown up believing that certain aspects of it are okay until our kids have kids and be like, we're not doing that. Do you guys believe that it's going to continue to be a cycle?
I hope not. Yeah, I don't think so. I
Yeah.
do not.
Yeah.
We're not back home. So like our parents coming here, they had like cultural values here, and they also gave those values to us somehow. And we also have like the influence of Western culture. So that is, that's different. It's more of like you speak up for yourself. You are more of individual person than a group,
Yes.
So I think our kids are definitely going to have some, if we teach them some, cultural African values to them,
Yeah.
they can keep that. And if they also like it and they value it, they can keep it and share to their kids. But I don't know. It will be passed on somehow if we, be good parents who are, discipline them, of course, not beating them, no,
Yeah.
but just like disciplining them in the right way, in the godly way. So I think that's going to be, it will change, but just like the values
Yeah.
will somehow
Remain
if they like it, because
they'll have more of an opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
That's
so
what I want, like for my kids to have more opinion on the things that they want. But also, I don't want my kids to have like Western values, because like not all of it. Because as I went to university, even though I hated it, I realized that like how important it is for me to know how to cook for myself, I had to learn how to love to do those things, how to learn how to love to wash the dishes and to cook. There's
Those
a lot
are
of trauma.
basic survival
Yes,
skills that everyone needs.
Yes,
Male or
and
female.
Yeah, and when I went to college, I looked at all these kids that didn't know how to do their laundry. I looked at all these kids that only went out to eat because they literally could not boil water. They could not do anything in the kitchen to save their life, and they were messy and they were disgusting and dirty.
Are you okay?
Not the kids, but like their environment. Like I will go to my friends' like places and I'm like, how are you living here?
Yeah.
Like this feels like trash, because they put their clothes everywhere. They don't know how to do laundry, so it's dirty. They're just like don't know how to take care of their environment, and that was affecting them mentally, physically. And I realized how important it was for me that I knew how to clean. Like I will go like in their bathrooms and I'll just be like, you know what, I can hold in my pee for 2 hours because I do not want to sit on that thing because it's dirty, and they don't know how to clean their like tubs. They just didn't know how to do basic things.
Yeah.
So
And so just to tie it back to your research question, like why men pay for sex. So after growing up in such an environment that encourages women to be products and basically employees of their husbands with unpaid. So
Unpaid.
basically, slaves.
yeah.
So it's not a surprise that these men grow up and if they fail to be satisfied sexually from a woman who's just willing to do it for free, it's not a surprise that they go out and buy it and purchase sex from these women, because these families are raising these men to believe that this is what they deserve, this is what is entitled for them, and this is their throne, they need to take it. So I thought that was a very interesting research study. Cynthia also did one of her own, which I think is absolutely amazing also. And maybe she can tell us a little bit about it.
That'll be next for our next episode.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's...
Yeah, and I wanted to just like add it onto that for like men, like you were saying, like they expect this, and therefore so when some women that don't fit that mold, they're seen like, oh, you're not a woman because you can't cook for me. You're not a woman because you don't know how to take care of my children. You're not a woman because like you're not a virgin. Therefore, you've been on the streets like opening your legs for everyone. But
Go ahead, Danielle.
I mean, it's just things like,
Speak,
I'm not wrong, because we've seen this, like they like you hear like, oh, she's
100%.
known in the streets. I'm like, who are the streets? Because
What? Who's taking attendance on the street?
Yeah, who's taking attendance? And like, how do you know that? Like, excuse me? Yeah, so it's like you have to be like this perfect, naive person that doesn't know anything, and then the man is supposed to like teach you all these things. Like your value is just like, I know how to cook.
The guy can't even wash his own dishes. Yes, he's gonna teach me.
Yes, he's gonna teach you all of this stuff, and you're just like, I am a perfect little person that never make a mistake, that don't have any other feelings besides the feeling of happiness. I just know how to take care of children, and I know how to cook for you. And if I'm not satisfying you,
I think that's like a expectation now. Like,
or some
it's like, I'm paying 15 grand, but she needs to know how to make mandazi, bro. Like that's it.
Ugali.
Ugali?
Fufu.
Oh my
Yes,
and
fufu.
some soup.
Yes. I'm like, you know what? You hungry? Here's McDonald's. Go to McDonald's and get some food for yourself.
Yes.
Because I'm tired and I don't feel like feeding you, because you're a grown adult who can feed yourself.
And so I know we're gonna speak about your research question next week, but if you could we're gonna be talking about more controversial. If you guys thought this one was controversial, tune in next week for that episode. You guys are gonna be like, so we're gonna be touching base on mental health, which is very important in our community. I know like so many.
Nobody's depressed in this community. Apparently.
What is depression? You're sad. Open your Bible.
Get over it.
And that. So I think Cynthia should just tell us a little bit about what we're gonna talk about.
Before that, let's talk about just like what do you think why do you think men what is the background behind like sex, men paying for sex? Like what do you think? Also, like looking at like where we came from, like how was sex viewed? What do you guys think? Like what is the history behind that? Men are people, they're not like sex
Providers.
Even women are not, we're humans, but like people make like businesses out of that, which is like prostitution, trafficking, and all those things. What do you think the history is behind men
sex? Well, with sex trafficking, it's really hard because as women get older, that's like shamed. it's almost shameful to get older because men want younger and younger and younger men. As you get older, it's like your value is being less. You become less. You're like, oh, you're less
Depreciate
pretty.
like a vehicle, girl.
Yes, like a vehicle. As we get older, like you're just gone. You're going down every year. As you get older, your value is just like hitting rock bottom. And men don't want women their own age. Like, let's just be honest. Men don't want mature women who can stand up for themselves and be like, no. They want women they can manipulate. They want women that they can groom into like whatever they want it to be. Like, we've seen those, like you were saying about sugar daddies that are like 60-year-old and they have 20-year-olds as like a person they have sex with. Like, that could be your child. You could literally birth them. Yes. You could literally birth them 2 times. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's like seen as like okay because as men go, like, they get older. It's fine for men to get older because they're like, oh, you're wine. The older you get, the sweeter you are, or whatever. And it's like for women, like, we get old and we're like sour grapes. Like, nobody wants us anymore. And they like want to replace you.
We age like wine. The older, the better. Go on, baby.
They replace you. So I feel like that's what these men are looking for. They don't want like women their own age. Like, when you look at like when you look at stories of like literal babies being sex trafficked and a grown man, a grown person
boil him alive,
intelligence have sex with a little 6-month-old baby. Like, what can explain that? Like, what can explain
mental
that?
health.
Yes. And it's like, you have little children, like 2-year-olds, you have 15-year-olds, like you have somebody's child, and these men think it's okay to have sex with them. Like, that makes no sense. And then the current environment with like, what's that one place, like OnlyFans and stuff, where prostitution is being seen as like normal. Being a sugar daddy, being a sugar baby, being like used for sex to get money is seen like, oh, she's just like, you know, she's hustling. She's like, no, that is not okay. Like, it's not okay to do those things. And I know our society is like, oh, it's my body, my choice. Like, it doesn't affect me. But like, it's not okay to sell yourself. Like, I'm just gonna say that. If you are selling yourself, stop. Like, get some help. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but you need to stop. Like, it's not okay to just go out there and just do that, because, you know, sexual acts have like, it's, the Bible it tells us it's supposed to be like intimate and all of that.
Sacred.
Yes, sacred. And we have our society that's saying like hookup culture and all of that. And because of that, just like disgusting things are coming up, discussing consequences of like all these things that are just coming up. And so this research just shows like men just wants younger and
so
stuff like that.
For a person to like perceive themselves like as a purchasable item, you know, as a commodity, I feel like all of these have underlying mental health issues that could be explained by you know, mental health research and stuff like that, which we will be speaking about next week. Or I don't know exactly the exact day. We
Don't
took
worry,
over.
we got this.
Yeah.
When this part 2 comes out, we're going to be discussing that. But yeah, so she was basically, you know, saying that what is causing these men to just grow up, you know, believing this and like behaving this way.
Our media, our society, like just all around, like the over sexualization of everyone. Like, you go on the internet and you see like this 12-year-old and you're just like, what is happening right now?
Where are the parents?
Like, I'm always like,
Where are the
where is your mother? Where is your guardian? Who's caring for you? And you see these men and it's like, it's okay because look, they're grown or whatever. And it's like, no, they're not. That's a 12-year-old. I don't care if she looks 32. That's a 12-year-old. And it's just like, these men used to be like, their minds need to be washed. Their thinking needs to be
by the blood of Jesus.
Yes, their thinking
or
needs to be Yes.
Boiled alive. Pick one.
Their thinking needs to be like what's it called? Like this. I can't even say the word. It needs to be changed. Like everybody's thinking just needs to be changed about everything. We all just need Jesus. That's my answer.
Amen.
We need Jesus.
Yeah.
We need you to go out there, men, women, kids, open your Bible and read what Jesus said. Read, like, it's toxic. It's gross. It's
Sickening. It's sickening.
It
And
is.
on I keep saying next week. It's crazy.
Well, you ready?
On
You're
our
in a
next-
rush.
You're
on
ready.
our
Give me a
next,
second.
yeah.
I just want to shout out to the men who are, out there and they're like taking care of themselves. They value human,
Yes.
humans. We are all humans. It doesn't matter the gender role you are in, like
Yes.
female or male. Like, we are all creation of God and we are valuable. So like,
Yeah.
selling, people selling themselves and people buying just because, I feel like this and that. It's horrible. You're killing someone. So I just want to shout out to those men who are healthy out there, who are,
Yes.
like respecting women,
Yes.
who are, it doesn't even matter how like the person is dressed and
Yeah.
look, those, just you valuing a human being is very, very, very crucial because you never know. People say that what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
So you never know. That can be your child or you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's shout out to the men and women out there who are,
Value.
value
women.
themselves and value other people, especially women.
Yeah,
and,
and-
sex in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we also want to say like these, like what we talked about is just our opinions.
Mhm,
And I know some
exactly.
people are like, I value myself even though I do all of these things. Like it doesn't, like we get that. Like this is just our opinions. You don't need to, like wherever this ends up on, like don't attack us, don't come for us because the internet is like, yeah, I just want to say that like this is just our opinions. You can have your opinion, like comment down your opinion, like just let's have a civil discussion. There's no need for hostility or anything. It's just 3 opinions and we have billions of people out there with billions minds. So billion
100%.
minds. So
So I was gonna say.
I would say it.
Okay.
Okay. So the next episode we're going to talk about mental health.
Yes.
So the stigma around mental health with our African communities, and how they don't think it's necessary because they think, or we think that we have our families, we have friends, we have religious groups, so like this is a good support system, so there's no need. And sometimes some people say that it's too expensive, but I'm just we want to talk about how there are resources out there, and so just stay tuned, and
It's gonna be exciting.
we'll be back. This is just part 1. You're gonna be seeing us a lot.
Pay-per-view.
Yes.
So I would just want to say thank you to Theo and what's your
Spanny.
Spanny, yes,
Spanny.
for this just wonderful platform for us
Yeah.
to be able to voice our opinions on things like this, because it's important for women to speak for women and for Africans to speak for the African experience. You know what I mean? So hopefully, if this is an open discussion. So if any of you guys have experiences or any, your opinion matters.
Comment
So
Yes.
and like.
comment, what you've been through, what you've experienced, or if you want to join the podcast, you can
Yeah.
contact Theo or Spanny. It was honestly an honor for me to be able to speak here. Mama, I made it. So, shout out to my sister, Jackie. She wanted me to shout her out before I leave, so I did it. Check. But it was wonderful speaking to you, intelligent women. I definitely feel like I've learned something today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
Daniela.
Yeah, and remember,
Thank you,
it's
Nelly.
okay to disagree.
Thank you, Cindy.
Oh yeah.
100%. We welcome
Yes.
conversations here
Yes.
and debates.
Yes, we do.
Yuki.